members of my team at work will tune in tonight. That'll be interesting. Well, hello and welcome to episode number 486 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I am Carlos, and in this week's packed show, we have got, and if I can bring up the screen, I'll be even better to see. We have got loads of great news. We haven't got any caption this week, but we have got news on Ural Airlines giving up on flying its Airbus out of the farmer's field. BA pilot is kidnapped on a layover, and in the military news this week, NASA inches closer to developing a commercially viable supersonic transport, and there's some battlefield victories in the Ukraine as well. So joining me this week on the show is not Matt Smith. He's not here. No, he couldn't join us this week. He's not here. But joining me here across the pond over in the US of A is someone who, when he flies his jet, has to have his heating on full blast because he's so damn cool. It is, of course, Armando.
It's like Ron Burgundy. I always wonder if Carlos is actually going to read the introduction, but I can see that you just glossed right over me wanting to be like our superstar guest host. Hello, everyone.
How are you?
All well here in North Carolina. A little cold, like it is everywhere else in the world. I think everybody's in the chat room talking about how cold it is wherever they live. But ready to go this week.
So what's been up to in the life of Armando this week then?
Not much, just all domestic engineer type work, taking care of the household. A little bit of flying. I think you saw the video. I took the biplane up. Little cold, but still fun to fly.
Oh, it's good to see you, as always, Armando. And Nev is not with us this week. He's over your neck of the woods, I think, Armando. He's over in Portland, I think, still.
It's Portland, yeah.
Yeah, Portland.
It's the other side of the continent, but yeah, closer to me, I guess, than he is to you.
Yeah. But we have got a very special guest host on this evening, and it is of someone who appears on the show quite frequently, actually, now. We seem to have stolen him from his own podcast, which is good news for us, I suppose. But it gives me great pleasure to welcome onto the show, back into the seat, the guest host seat, is, of course, Matt Clutterbuck from the A320 podcast.
Hiya, thanks very much. Always a pleasure to be on, and yeah, good to have you all back on again, and interesting being on a Wednesday. Makes it much easier for me, certainly, to get on. So yeah, looking forward to the show.
Yes, we've got a few stories from the realms of Airbus this week, so you'll be pleased to know, Matt, so at least you can you can pass some judgments on there. Going to say hello to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room tonight. Going to look through the list there. Let's have a look who's in there. Start from the top. Richard Adams, he was in there nice and early tonight. Hello to you, Richard. Lee Davies is in there, pint in hand. Well done, Lee. We've got Mazouz, our local listener. Mazouz is in there. Good to see you, Mazouz. Richard E. Flag is in there. Good to see you as well. Bill, hello, Bill. Captain Cruz is also in there. Thanks for the comment, Captain Cruz. Yes, I'm in charge of the studio this week. What could go wrong? Possibly. Tanya's in there as well. Hello to you, Tanya. Our main man, Uncle Micah, is also in there. Masha, hope you're well, Masha. Hobby Time, hello to you as well. Just scroll down the list here. Make sure. Sturman, hello, Sturman. Good to see you as well this week. He's back in there. Alan, hello to you, Alan. Good to see you as well. Hope you're warm, Alan, because it's blooming cold here where we are. Nana's also in there. She's in there. Nana Cruz. Good evening to you. I think she's in a posh hotel somewhere here in the UK, living life's eternal dream, I think. We've got, let me just scroll down, Plane Safety Podcast. Hello to you, Pip. He's in there this week. Good to see you, Pip. Oscar, hello Oscar. We've not seen Oscar for ages. Hello Oscar, hope you're well. Not seen you in a chat room for ages. Don't forget, if you're listening to us in the world of glorious audio, don't forget we are live every Wednesday now on YouTube, 7 o'clock here. Don't forget, if you can find us on YouTube, you should be able to find us. Plain Talking UK. Click the subscribe and bell icon to be notified when we're live and broadcasting episodes like we are doing right now. So, loads of commercial news to get through this week. So, if all the team are ready.
Let's go.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
It always makes you wonder whether we're going to have a story or a week where we don't have stories like this. This is coming to us from Toronto, citynews.ca. An Air Canada passenger injured after opening cabin door before departure, falling out of the aircraft at Pearson Airport. So an Air Canada flight from Toronto to Dubai was delayed after a passenger opened the cabin door of the Boeing 777 and fell onto the tarmac at Toronto Pearson International Airport, sustaining injuries. The incident occurred on Monday evening as the man, who was in a state of crisis, according to the police, boarded the aircraft normally, but instead of taking his seat, opened the cabin door opposite to where he had boarded, leading to a fall and minor injuries. He was taken into custody and received treatment at a local hospital. The flight carrying 319 customers was delayed nearly 6 hours, departing early Tuesday morning, and Air Canada confirmed that standard procedures were followed and is reviewing the incident, while Greater Toronto Airports Authority is working with officials to address the situation. So he walks in through, it comes in through the door, and then what happens here, Armando?
Well, I feel like I don't know what kind of state of crisis he was in, but it's always interesting to me that this continues to happen, but there's really not much you can do about it, right? So you can't lock the doors when the aircraft is, because that's a safety issue. Even though they're not armed, the slides aren't armed when you're just parked at the gate. I think people see the same, I think the Airbus has a green and yellow paddle or something like that, where there's a little indicator, or maybe it's different airline by airline, but yeah, so maybe it's green and red. But I think people just start, they see something, they want to move it, and they have, I think most people don't have any idea what's going to happen when they do that. When I was flying charter, I actually had a passenger reach for the cargo door exit while I was taxiing. Luckily, it didn't open or anything like that. But just out of curiosity, I think they removed the cover, and right behind the cover there is the lever. And luckily on that airplane there's an extra safety latch, but he moved it just enough where we got an indication up front that there was an open door. So obviously we had to stop taxiing and everything, and one of us got out of the seat, and went back there, and he had a guilty look. He knew exactly what he had done, and said, "Oh, I was just messing with it." It's like, well, okay, well now we got to shut down and verify that everything is safe before we continue on. So
you've had this issue with you, Andy, with you, Matt, on the aircraft that you fly on. Obviously, you're on a commercial airline. You've got a lot of passengers sitting behind you, but I'd imagine that you're quite busy, I would say, at the beginning of the flight, doing things to sort of keep in touch with who's coming on and off.
Yeah, during boarding, obviously we don't have particularly long boarding times, so we're quite separated, other than, the odd person might stick their head in or say something. We sometimes hear a little bit from behind, but yeah, generally we don't have much to do with boarding. I do have, one of my friends had it actually, where they were boarding, and if you're in the overwings, the cabin crew will come and brief the overwing passengers on how to use the overwing exits, and they said this as one of the passengers, and then after they walked away, they thought, okay, so how do I do this? And then they practiced and pulled the handle and fired the over wing slide. So that flight was cancelled. So that's the only thing that I know. So it's
Yeah,
quite interesting.
Am I right
And
in
we,
thinking, Matt, that all the doors on the well, obviously you fly the Airbus, but am I right in thinking that all the doors, including the overwing exit doors, emergency doors, every single door has got like like a micro switch or a trigger that if it opens, that you get a warning on the flight deck?
correct. In fact, the overwing ones, we're told even if you take the cover off, so you don't actually have to open the door, we get the warning with the cover coming off. So we would know before that point. Yeah.
when was it last week that we had a story about a BA crew while they were taxiing? The one crew member was demonstrating to the other one that how it works, and they inadvertently deployed the slide while taxiing. Captain Cruz had a question in the chat room, and the answer is no. The slides are not usually armed while the aircraft is being serviced. I think over there in Europe, it is much more common to board passengers from the front and the back. That's rarely. I know very few airlines, very few airports here in the U.S. that don't board through a jetway. Here at my local airport, Concord, North Carolina, Allegiant and Sun Country fly in there. They do not have a jetway there, so they do board via stairs, via the front and the back, a la European way. But I think the other side of the airplane, the right side of the airplane, is also disarmed because that's where all the caterers and servicing is happening. So while we are at the stand, we don't usually arm the doors.
And of course, it'd be a massive risk to any ground personnel should a slide be inadvertently deployed. We actually had a long time ago, probably 10, 15 years ago, had an issue where the cabin crew is so drilled into not accidentally opening the door when it's armed and firing off the slide. They're so paranoid about it. They actually had a real evacuation and disarmed the slide because they're so used to doing it. They're relatively new. And they had to stop everyone getting off, close the door, arm it, and then open the door again to get the slide. So sometimes you can have it the other way. I find the most fascinating thing about this story is how they says they only had minor injuries. I mean, the 737 is much lower than the 320. They're only about 2.5 meters high. We're about 3.5 meters high for the bottom of the door on the 320. But the 777 is like five plus meters high. It's a long way to fall with minor injuries onto tarmac. I'm surprised they weren't more seriously injured, to be honest.
Maybe it's like one of those things that when people are driving drunk and they get into a car accident, it's always the drunk person that survives because they're relaxed or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. Matt, I think actually you've got the next story.
I have, yes. This one will resonate with many, I think. So this one is from simpleflying.com, and it says, why Gatwick Airport has hiked its passenger drop-off charge. So London Gatwick Airport has raised its terminal drop-off fee from £5 to £6, stirring frustration among users who learned of the hike via the airport's official social media channel. In response to passenger concerns and to clarify the rationale behind the fee increase, London Gatwick said that the decision was taken to reduce congestion at the airport. According to the airport, the increased fee would allow it to reinvest in sustainable transport and encourage more passengers and staff to use public transport to reach the airport. So hopefully everyone's concerns have been addressed hearing that. This sort of thing annoys me when they say it's to make people use more public transport. It's like if you go to Thorpe Park or one of the theme parks around the UK, you can't get to it really other than by car, yet they charge you for parking, suggesting to take public transport. It's almost impossible to get there by public transport.
Okay.
I mean, with Gatwick, yeah, if you live in London, great, you can get the train out of London, but it's not very easy to get to Gatwick via public transport from anywhere else.
I actually have a question. How do they enforce this? How do they charge you for doing this?
AMPR.
Yeah, number plate recognition. You have to go online and then you get a fine if you don't do it. So
You have to do it beforehand?
You can do it after, but I think normally by midnight that night or something, or the next night.
Yeah, I know. Back in my previous job, when I was driving the truck, and I had a couple of jobs where I was delivering to Heathrow Terminal 3, and they've got a big drop-off point outside there. You've probably seen it, Matt, at T3, that next door where the Virgin building is. And there's a big drop-off point there, and there's a massive billboard that says, register your vehicle online now if you're dropping someone, only if you're dropping someone off. If you're dropping someone, you need to register your vehicle and pay, I forget what it is now, pay a few pence, but anyway. But I got flagged. Lovely full HD colour picture came through to my boss a few weeks later with a picture of my truck with all the lights on and everything. But we questioned it in the end because we were a contractor, obviously dropping materials off, and they quashed it in the end, so we didn't have to pay. But it does catch a lot of people out who don't pay that fee to drop off at the airport at T3. And as like Matt said, you know, they got the ANPR system there, catches your registration, then you get a nice little picture of yourself in the post.
Yeah, and it goes on to say this move places Gatwick among other London airports that also charge for drop-offs. London Heathrow, £5 for any drop-off at Terminal Forecourts. London Luton, £5 for 10 minutes at Priority Drop-Off Zone. And London Stansted, which is most expensive, £7 for 15 minutes at the Express Set-Down Zone. Unlike its peers, however, London City Airport does not charge a drop-off fee, which is ironic because that's the one that's easiest to get to with public transport. Gatwick, which claims to be Europe's busiest single runway airport and is second only to Heathrow in UK passenger capacity, handled 32.9 million passengers in 2022, down from its pre-pandemic numbers. The airport is also seeking to boost its capacity by 60%, aiming to meet anticipated air travel growth. So, I mean, really, it's just another revenue stream, isn't it? It's effectively another air passenger duty tax on the passengers.
That's one of the nice things I think with you in the US, Armando. When you dropped me off at Charlotte, when I was staying with you last year, you know, you dropped me off literally right outside the departures area, through the doors, straight there. And you didn't pay $10, $15, $20, did you?
No, this is yet another one of those things that doesn't exist here in the US. I'm sure they get their money somehow. It's probably built into the ticket as a facility fee or something like that. The only airport that I know that charges anything for going onto the property is DFW Airport, and they've got these sort of toll gates at the north end and the south end, which are the only ways to get onto the airport property. And I think it's $2 $2 at DFW if you drop somebody off in a green zone. It's like the beginning of Airplane, the movie, right? And I think the highest is something like $9 or something like that if you're there for 30 minutes or something like that. But that's the only place that I know of, at least in the US, that does anything like this. But I think most other airports just working into the tickets somehow.
So moving on to the next story, coming from aerotime.aero. We're going back to a story that we've covered a few times on the show, actually. This is that Ural Airlines A320 that I was so hoping they were going to fly this out of there. So it's a developing story this week. And so it's on September the 12th last year. Remember, the Ural Airlines pilot was forced to land his A320 into a Russian wheat field after the crew became concerned the aircraft would not make it to Oh, God, here we go. Matt, you're probably better at this than me. You're probably flown in here at some point in your previous past.
We'll go Novosibirsk.
Thank you. Due to lack of fuel. The story of the troubled A320 jet captured the global media's attention as people speculated whether the aircraft would be flown out of the field or be cut up and transported away. To this day, the Ural Airlines plane remained in the field just outside that particular place in southern Siberia, protected by 24-hour private security and a fenced-off area. However, on January the 9th this year, 2024, a clearer insight into the true nature of the plane's immediate future emerged following comments by the head of the Yubeninsky district in Russia, Oleg Konyak. According to the region's head, Ural Airlines entered into a lease agreement with the field's owner to rent the field where the jets it's been lying for a year, and this could be extended for even longer. According to KP Novo, that word, the agreement currently runs until September this year and saw the airline paying over $11,000. So that all seemed like the future of the aircraft. It seemed reasonably long term, but then this happened. So Ural Airlines, the aircraft, the 320, and a Russian aviation telegram channel said, after a thorough evaluation of the aircraft, the decision has been made to dismantle the aircraft for parts and not attempt to fly the A320 out of the field, as was previously proposed. Matt's gutted about that. Yeah, the Telegram channel reported on January the 10th this year that the financial restraints meant any further attempts to rescue the aircraft intact had been exhausted. All assets on the Ural Airlines aircraft that can be reused in the future will be removed, transported from the field. There's been no official statement by Ural Airlines, and when approached by the Russian website 66RU, the airline said that no decisions will be made until the end of the investigation. The fate of the aircraft reportedly hinged on negotiations with the insurance firm, given the depth of spare parts, or lack of spare parts available for Russian airlines due to the economic sanctions. Scrapping the A320 may not be such a big loss for Ural. The aircraft is powered by two CFM56 engines, which will be the most valuable parts of the aircraft. Romeo Alpha 73805 began life under Air Arabia, flying for the airline for almost a decade, including a short spell at subsidiary Air Arabia Maroc. It joined Ural Airlines back in May 2013 and was reconfigured with a two-class cabin, seating 12 in business and 144 passengers in economy. Now, there's pictures that I think we've got a picture on here somewhere on the playout folder here of the aircraft, but it has the pictures we've got here is seeing the nose area of the fuselage cut off, and one of the wings has also been cut off. But Matt, I think you're slightly sort of gutted that you weren't going to be able to see this master of the skies ascend from the field.
Certainly had raised a lot of eyebrows in the industry when they were talking about flying this aircraft out. I think you don't need to be a specialist on any aircraft type to know that it was going to certainly be an interesting undertaking. I mean, the length of runway or field that you would need to take off in something like that, even with it frozen, is massive. I mean, we're talking like probably a couple of miles you're going to need to get an aircraft like that out. So yeah, I'm not sure what the surrounding area was like, but I mean, the list of issues is, I mean, you could write a book on reasons not to do that. Ingesting foreign object damage, FOD as we call it, debris, sucking in things, clearing the area, I mean, it's just so many things that could go wrong with that. And as you say, they can't get the spares, but they're probably, going to cut it up, use the parts that they need. I think they've probably made the safest and wisest choice. And I would imagine this has probably been dictated by the insurance companies rather than actually the airline deciding not to do it.
Sorry, Matt, I'm just reading the comment from Richard Adams in the chat room. Is that me standing by the cockpit with a disc cutter? Let's be honest here, right? If Ural Airlines want to make a few quid, this would be the aircraft to make plane tags from. Yeah. The 320 that landed in a cornfield. Yeah. Any thoughts, Armando, before we move on?
Well, our outstanding show producers have thrown a lot of notes in there, a lot of information. I didn't actually know this until they put this little nugget in there that I do remember that there was a lot of information that came out initially about this, and it seemed like the whole story was out fairly quickly, just in the few weeks or maybe even a month after the incident, where it almost seemed like we knew exactly what happened and the investigation was done. Well, apparently that's not the case, and new information came to light. The pilots were asked to resign from the company. They refused to do so. And I guess they're reopening the investigation as to what actually happened leading to this aircraft landing there. Um, I don't have a dog in the fight in the Boeing Airbus, uh, you know, uh, rivalry, but you got to admit we're seeing a lot of between this airplane and Cactus 1549 that landed in the Hudson. You got to admit it's in the A350 in Japan that we're about to talk about. Airbus is puts together a pretty good product, don't they? That these aircraft are making these amazing landings that are survivable.
Did that hurt Carlos to hear that?
Yes, that's right. Oh my gosh, they did take off a 737 from the Mississippi River. Yeah, I have the story in the catacombs of my mind. I think there was a really good documentary done by the Smithsonian Channel, I think, on it.
Correct.
Yeah, that was a really unique. I mean, the aviation is replete with these amazing feats all the way back to the beginning, right? But it's especially unique and special and captivating when you have airliners this size, right? That aircraft, the Gimli glider, and like all these other, these aircraft doing amazing things that you would expect a general aviation aircraft to do, but airliners are accomplishing them. So pretty cool. I got an Airbus luggage tag somewhere. Maybe I'll just throw that on to express my fandom of of Airbus.
Oh,
it's a good club to be in.
Yeah, well, I'm just a wannabe. I'm just a little corporate guy, so maybe it's a dream of mine.
Now, sticking with Airbus for the next story, Matt, do you want to take this next one? This is all about that incident a few weeks back.
Yeah, sure. Threw that curveball at me, didn't you?
I know.
Yeah, so this is, as Armando alluded to, about the Japan Airlines plan to recover the A350 wreckage for Aviation Safety Exhibition, which is really interesting story, actually. So JAL has begun considering preserving the remains of its aircraft involved in the accident, which has since been removed from the side of runway 16 left and 34 right, which has now reopened. On January 5th, 2024, 3 days following the accident, investigators from Japan's Transport Safety Board, the JTSB, began working their way through the wreckage before excavators removed the remains of the A350 and relocated it to a secure JAL hangar located elsewhere on the airfield for further inspection, following a maintenance order issued by the JTSB. JAL is considering exhibiting the remains for both company employees and also the general public to convey lessons learned from the incident to improve aviation safety overall. While little remains of the fuselage of the JAL aircraft, which caught fire upon landing following the collision, parts of the aircraft's wing, vertical stabilizer and engines remain. JAL considers the wreckage of its A350 jet to be a valuable object in conveying the lessons of air safety and will consult with the Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism Ministry of Japan, the engine manufacturer Rolls-Royce and other stakeholders regarding the preservation of the remains, while also monitoring the progress of the investigation into the accident. The company's employee training facility, known as the JAL Safety Promotion Center, displays various articles and exhibits that are related to aviation safety matters. One such display preserves the remains of part of the fuselage from the JAL Boeing 747SR that was involved in an accident in August 1985 when the aircraft suffered an explosive decompression and broke apart mid-air, killing all 520 passengers and crew on board. The exhibit also features other parts of the aircraft remains, as well as various passenger belongings that were recovered from the crash site scene. The JAL Safety Promotion Center is open to the public 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, and offers guided tours of the exhibits. Advance reservations are required, so if ever you're down that way could be something that's well worth looking into. And actually, my personal opinion is I think it would be a very good exhibition to take on tour. Maybe in Europe, I assume it's the same in the US, Armando, but it would be nice to have some of our passengers see how quickly an aeroplane ends up looking like that and how everyone survives when you don't take your hand luggage with you.
Yeah, as I was listening to last week's episode, I was kind of wondering this exact thing is how do you take this experience and promote it to the public without, alarming or making flying seem more dangerous than it really is. I didn't really come up with anything because you could somehow work it into the safety demonstrations. Maybe that's not the right place. I'm sure we're going to see plenty of documentaries on this, but the general public doesn't watch that. So how do you convey this message to the general traveling public? Maybe a safety display at airports or something like that,
Or maybe some sort of national funded video or piece of video that goes on, commercial breaks. Could be, paid promotion on YouTube that comes up on videos when people are looking at stuff or something like that. Airlines could have it on their websites. It would be interesting to see if that had any effect, because we've seen a few incidents now of people getting off an evacuation with all their even trolley cases and things like that.
A few. I think you're giving us credit. I think it's more than some things. I think it's most nowadays. Everybody pulls out their phone and takes out their carry-on luggage and gets out of the airplane. The next story I saw a couple of days ago when it came out, and it just reminded me of us traveling in the military. It's from thesun.co.uk. A British Airways pilot was kidnapped and tortured as he went shopping on his own on a layover between flights. The first officer was actually approached by a woman in a supermarket car park who asked him to help carry her bags to her car. When they reached the vehicle, a group of men pushed him aside. He was then driven to a remote area of Johannesburg, where he was, quote, badly roughed up. And he eventually handed over thousands and thousands of pounds, which I know all you rich European airline captains carry around with you. He was obviously unfit to fly the plane back to London from Johannesburg and had a replacement come in. That pilot is safe. He's been off work, being supported by colleagues. The airline does ban the staff from being in certain parts of the city, but the crew hotel is in an area called Melrose Arch, which is supposed to be the safest area. Now, when we traveled with the government, we received threat briefings or force protection briefings, as we call them, which were essentially real-time assessments as to how dangerous it was in both different parts of the city, what the overall national threat level was. I've never flown for an airline internationally. I don't know if that's something that they do, or maybe they publish company-wide bulletins, but regardless of how much you brief people on it, crime is crime. And I think I've told the story on the show before. My own father, who was an airline pilot, was robbed at gunpoint when we were growing up in Puerto Rico. The uniform, they just saw a uniform. Now, I can't imagine this person was in uniform, but back in when this happened to our family, my dad was just coming home from work, and they saw the uniform. They see money associated with that. They actually thought he was a soldier, which he wasn't. He was in an airline uniform. So I think just being different makes people targets of just petty crime. Was it targeted because he was a pilot? Probably not. But it's certainly prudent to do your homework as to where you can go in and out of a city, but nowhere, even in Europe, in the US, you're not really 100% safe anywhere. But we always had the buddy system in the government and in the Air Force, where no one was to be out by themselves. So I don't know. Maybe that'll change the airline's posture on that. What are you guys' thoughts?
Interesting. It'd be interesting to hear because it's not clear whether they're advised not to go to that area just because they were in a hotel in that area. I know that some destinations will say don't leave the hotel, so I don't know what the situation is here. But apparently this hotel is in its own security compound, so I have no idea. I'm just guessing here. I would say that they should probably stay in that compound. Maybe this supermarket isn't in that compound. I don't know.
Yeah, when we before we started going out to the Middle East, to Dubai and we obviously Oman we went back to regularly up until COVID. I'd read things about the Middle East and especially about Oman that were a little bit dubious. But I'm not going to lie, after going out there as many times as we have now, I feel the same as I do when I'm at home. I feel just as safe as I do here, walking around the village here. In the Middle East.
I think it's important to stress that, Carlos. I mean, you could be in Fort Lauderdale and get mugged. You could be in Houston and get mugged. You could be in London and get mugged if you're in the wrong area, or you might be in the right area. And they, criminals know exactly where the crews hang out. The crews probably always stay in the, same place, and it's pretty predictable.
So moving on to the next story, and Matt, you've got a story about the TSA.
Thought you were going to take my one in repayment.
No.
TSA detects 6,737 firearms at airport security checkpoints in 2023. Worth noting, actually, I don't know if it says in here, it's actually only the first 3 quarters of 2023 because they haven't got the data from the last quarter. In 2023, the TSA intercepted a record 6,737 firearms at airport checkpoints across the US, with about 93% being loaded, a slight decrease in the rate from previous year, but the highest count ever. The TSA Administrator David Pekoski highlighted the risk posed by these incidents and reiterated the rules against carrying loaded firearms in carry-on luggage. Firearms and ammunition are strictly prohibited in carry-on baggage. Passengers are only allowed to travel with an unloaded firearm, and only if they pack it properly in a locked, hard-sided case in their checked luggage and first declare it to the airline at the check-in counter. In 2023, TSA screened more than 858 million individuals, which indicates the agency intercepted 7.8 firearms per million passengers, a drop from 8.6 million in 2022. On average, 18 firearms were stopped daily, and passengers found with them faced law enforcement action, fines of up to $15,000, and pre-check revocation and potential enhanced screening. So, yeah, quite an interesting one there. I mean, I guess it's going to be shocking to us in Europe when carrying of firearms is not the norm, or certainly not as normal as it is in the US. I have had it myself in the UK, actually, where I used to work in security at Stansted, and I had a firearm in someone's bag that came through, and I stopped it in the X-ray machine, and the police were called, and it was in the bottom of a bag, and the guy didn't realize it was in there, which is interesting on many levels because handguns are illegal, and not being in a locked cabinet is also illegal. So there's multiple things there. His wife was not very impressed, should I say, at that one. So as our resident American, Armando, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm a glasses half full kind of guy. You read that story, and that's improvement.
Yeah, it's going down. Well done.
Yeah, we went down from 8.6 firearms per million passengers to 7.8. So that's all I have to say about that. Keep getting better, America. No, I don't. It's such a cultural thing here. I can see it happening, right? I mean, flying on the private charter side and the corporate side, I just actually transport quite a few firearms. When we're doing part 135 charters, it's a little bit different where the captain's supposed to know that there's a firearm. We're supposed to check it. sometimes they even give us the key to the locked cases, so we have the keys up front. We do a lot of hunting trips when we're doing charters. Part 91, which is just private owners, none of that. It's prudent, but none of that has to happen. And I could see how one of those individuals would have a firearm in their luggage, and then for whatever reason they go travel commercial and it ends up there. That's one of the few scenarios, but I mean, we've heard stories on this show about even pilots carrying firearms through security and getting caught when they weren't authorized. We do have a federal, federal flight deck security officer, something where you can arm pilots, and but there's a couple stories every year about even pilots carrying firearms through security that they didn't know they had. Or at least they say so.
You guys still have the air marshals over there, Armando?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
It's just it's hard for us in Europe or most other parts of the world to sort of comprehend this because it's so alien to us. But like Armando says, it's probably not surprising given the fact that, you know, gun laws are very different in the US.
Yeah, I have traveled with firearms. I took a trip to Texas, where, you know, I went on the airline's website and I figured out, I think I was on United because I was going to Houston. I don't have any firearms anymore, but I had, you know, 2 firearms with me, and I was going to Texas, and I followed all the rules, you know, and declared them and did the paperwork online and wrote it in my ticket. And then when I showed up an extra hour to the check-in and did the in-person check-in and declared them, and they put the correct tags, they inspected it. So if you go through the process, it's not a big deal. But you know, I could see how it happens here.
Sticking with you, Armando, for the next story. Saw this one. This one popped up on the news feeds this week. I popped this in to our producer Nick to stick this in on the stories, but yeah, obviously we've had a lot of issues with Boeing, but this is a sort of worrying issue with Airbus.
You're right. I take back everything I said about Airbus being superior. Lufthansa Cargo has temporarily grounded 2 of its A321 freighters after discovering a fine crack in the fuselage of one aircraft. One of the aircraft, the Delta Alpha Echo Uniform Charlie, was already out of service for routine cracks. I don't know. Matt, is that a thing? Routine cracks? And there was another one, Alpha Echo Uniform India, that had been.
It says routine checks on my.
Oh, sorry, routine checks. You are correct.
Slander.
Sorry, producer John is chatting to us in our ear. That's why the silence there, as we all giggle. Sorry, Airbus. No routine cracks. This issue during the checks led to a precautionary inspection of all 4 cargo converted A321s. 2 have already returned to service. The passenger versions of the A320s are unaffected, and the carrier anticipates that only minor disruptions to its schedule, right? Because these are cargo aircraft. And obviously they're going to take some repairs. And there's some background information on the aircraft here. But yeah, you know, I whether it's this, whether it's Boeing, whether it's anything, I always enjoy a story where faults are discovered through routine checks. That means the system is working. That means that the safety checks are working. That means that people like Peter that we have on the show are doing their job and discovering any potential safety issues, because that is the intent of all these inspections, to make sure that it's all safe. So, well, yeah, terrible for the airplanes, but I'm glad that they're actually finding these.
Yeah, Nick's put on there that the crack was located at the rear fuselage structure of one of the aircraft, which I suppose you've got the pressure bulkhead, haven't you, back there towards the rear of the aircraft?
Yeah, we don't. It depends on where in the aircraft, where the rear being anything, you know, after the wings, that's inside the pressure vessel. It could be outside. It could be. I don't know anything about the conversion to freighters. I don't know if they strengthen the fuselage in different areas. I don't know if they modify anything back there. I know they modify the front where the cargo door is, but I'm not sure that they really mess too much with the back, as far as I know. I mean,
And these
totally
aren't composite either, are they? That's the
No, I think these are traditional build metal
build,
aircraft.
Yeah. Anything before we move on, Matt?
Don't think so, no. As Armando said, they're called P2F, passenger to freighter. So Airbus doesn't actually produce any freighter of the A320 family from the factory. They're converted to it. So, like you say, I think most of the conversions at the front. So it'd be interesting to find out what caused the cracks, because you would expect if there was an issue with the conversion, it would be towards the front. But yeah, interesting. It says it's only one of the aircraft, though, so grounding both of them would make you think that they suspect it might be something to do with it being the freighter conversion. It's just me surmising.
So the move next on to the next story. God, I'm starving, I tell you. Honestly, I should have brought some snacks with me. This is on airlinelive.net, and EasyJet A320 NEO skids off taxiway at Keflavik Airport in Iceland. EasyJet flight from London Gatwick to Keflavik touched down safely and was able to slow down to taxiing speed. The flight was operated by an Airbus A320 NEO, Golf Uniform Juliet Echo Bravo, but then it veered off the taxiway and came to a stop with its nose gear over a grass verge. Passengers were able to get off, but the jet has been taken out of service, and a replacement jet was scrambled into action in time for the return journey, while the investigation into the incident has been launched. Yeah, I suppose it's one of those things. We've had some pretty extreme weather in the UK over the last kind of 2 months. Well, probably at least 2 months. We've gone from gale. I think we have a storm every week here in the UK at the minute. Winds, and we're now sort of heading into a colder sort of stretch of the year as such with us in the UK, where temperatures are falling down below the zeros. I know we had issues in Manchester Airport this week with snow. They had the snow and the machines removing snow from the airports up there, and up in Scotland, I think, as well. Most of the issues have been up north, but I suppose you have to make adjustments as pilots, Matt, when you're coming into an airport where there is a possibility of either wet or icing. You have to make some adjustments to how you land the aircraft.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've flown to Keflavik many times. It's both my favourite and my worst destination to go to. When the weather's lovely, it's great going up there, but it can be challenging. It's nearly always windy up there, and which isn't normally a problem, because although it's windy, it's very smooth. So normally that wind hasn't touched anything since it left the US, so it's smooth as anything by the time it gets to Iceland. But it does pose issues with crosswinds, etc., when there's snow on the ground. So, I mean, looking at the pictures I've seen some aerial ones as well. You can see that it looks extremely icy there. And if I don't know, did you bring up a picture? But the picture I've seen where it's parked on the taxiway, it looks, I mean, I'm just guessing here, but it looks like they've come off the runway and maybe the main gear slid round as if it's trying to sort of oversteered. Those of you that into you're drifting and you're racing, it looks like a bit of an oversteer situation rather than they've taxied off. But these aircraft are heavy. Even at landing, when we've burnt off a lot of weight, this aircraft's going to be, if it's a NEO there, I think so, it's going to be 60 odd tons. Yeah, it's about 60 tons. You don't need very much skid or ice for that to end up off the taxiway, the amount of inertia you've got. So yeah.
What are the implications, Matt, for sort of braking action and stuff? Obviously, you get the spoilers deploy when you land to slow the aircraft, and obviously the thrust reversers on the engine as well. I mean, do you have to sort of lay off the foot brake as such when you're landing?
No. So we would actually put medium auto brake on, so we'd use the maximum that we can use for auto brake on landing. We have anti-skid, a bit like ABS on a car. Obviously, the spoiler's going to use that, and we'd use full reverse. Generally, the runways are cleared, so generally you'll be landing, the runway will be wet because it's treated. Obviously, we don't use grit or salt or anything like you'd use on the road. You use a chemical. So we can use the full reverse to slow us down. Generally, I'm sure Armando would say the same. The taxiing is the more treacherous part
Hmm.
because the runway is cleared and that is made a positive, safe surface. You often find that taxiing, you have to be very careful taxiing. I've actually had it in Keflavik where it was so windy, we actually stopped. We had the parking brake on, so we were stationary, and it was so windy that the wind was just blowing us sideways on the ice without any control. And I just said to the first officer, if we get any, if we end up going towards the terminal, our only option is to just shut down the engines and that. So we were doing, luckily it stopped itself, but the wind was so strong, it was sort of 60-mile-an-hour winds. We were stationary, and it was just the wind was strong enough to just blow us over the ice with the wheels and the brakes on.
Nana
So it can be interesting up there.
So in the chat room, Nana asks an interesting question, actually, which both you guys might be able to answer. Do they investigate all minor incidents? So something like this that is obviously classified as a minor would be investigated by the FAA or CAA or AIOB?
Certainly, maybe not the AIB, no, but certainly internally, you'd be amazed at the tiniest little thing. There'll be an internal investigation on. So, absolutely, yeah. And not because it's to get pilots into trouble or anything. It's about learning from it. What can we learn from this? How can we prevent this happening again? Which is the main thing that everybody wants the outcome to be.
Now, obviously in the US, Armando, you actually have snow, actual real snow.
Yeah. Well, to answer Nana's question, yeah, same here. Whether it's an internal company investigation or the NTSB or a NASA report, we have a ability to do basically a report that is anonymous and goes so other pilots learn from it. And NASA is actually an impartial third party that helps track safety issues. Especially when the pilots don't have, when the company doesn't have a culture that promotes safety and promotes pilots, especially in private and corporate, where they can raise safety concerns or perhaps question operational procedures. So you can always file a NASA report. Everything that Matt said about the icing considerations is true. We do have a lot more snow here than in the UK. The pilots that regularly operate in those conditions are pretty good at it. Just like he said, next week I'm taking the Hawker up to Rochester, Minnesota. That's the cold, dark north for us right now. And while the runway may be clear, it's taxiing that is really more dangerous. But just to give you, Carlos, some numbers, that on a dry runway, the Pilatus at full flaps can stop in about 900 feet. On a regular landing, it's about 2,000 feet. When you have a contaminated runway with slush or ice or a poor runway condition code, that almost triples the total landing distance for the aircraft. So even a Pilatus would need 5,000 feet as opposed to 2,000 feet to land on a snowed over runway. And then one thing that you have to worry about with larger aircraft, multi-engine aircraft, while you are trying to use the spoilers and speed brakes and reverse, you have to worry about asymmetric thrust and the engine spooling differently as you're trying to throw them into the reverse on a slippery runway. It may actually create even more instability if one of them happens, especially on turboprops and things like that, where one side may come up faster than the other one. So it's just tricky. You get used to it.
And cool. Suits you down the ground, Armando, as you are. Cool. Matt, you've got the next story, and it's good news. Actually, it's good news for the airline industry and also for Airbus.
Yeah, I think this is a trend we're seeing globally now, isn't it? So Emirates airline to recruit 5,000 additional cabin crew in 2024 for its upcoming A350s. Unbelievable, in 1 year, just for 2024. Flagship carrier Emirates is taking on an additional 5,000 cabin crew members for its new fleet of Airbus A350s, the airline announced Tuesday. The airline has said the recruitment push is designed primarily for those who will soon or have recently stepped into the world of work and is looking for those with a year or so of hospitality or customer service experience and individuals keen to embark on a career traveling the globe. So obviously looking for young people, it sounds like there. The new cabin crew recruitment drive comes as Emirates begins to take delivery of its eagerly anticipated A350s from mid-year, as well as the Boeing 777Xs starting in 2025. Fingers crossed. The airline has 65 A350s and a mix of 205 777-900s and 777-800s in its order book. In the 2022 to 2023 financial year, the Emirates Group had over 102,000 employees and welcomed 17,160 individuals in various roles. This year, Emirates recruitment team will have open days and assessments in more than 460 cities worldwide. In 2023, Emirates had hired 8,000 recruits as cabin crew after it held recruitment events in 353 cities. In August 2023, the airline's cabin crew numbers crossed the 20,000 mark and are now over 21,500 strong. All cabin crew recruits will go through 8.5 weeks of training at the Emirates facility in Dubai. To be considered, Emirates cabin crew candidates need to be fluent in written and spoken English. Additional languages are an advantage, and applicants must be at least 160 centimeters tall and able to reach 212 centimeters high. Applicants must also have at least 1 year of hospitality or customer service experience. There must be no visible tattoos or in Emirates cabin crew uniform. And then they also gave a list of dates of when they've got the cabin crew open days. So if this sounds like something to you that you'd be interested, then head over to that link. So it's on golfnews.com. Oh, EmiratesGroupCareers.com, I'm being told in my ear. So yeah, we'll put the link there.
Actually, if you're in London tomorrow, London Heathrow tomorrow, they've got one there tomorrow. Actually, Emirates have. So yeah.
Fancy that, Carlos? Are you going to be down there?
If I had the day off, I'd go just to attend, just to be there.
That is phenomenal, isn't it? I mean, nearly 22,000 cabin crew and 5,000 new. Unbelievable.
Their rotor app or system or computer that does their rotor system must be one hell of a system to sort out all those people. Yeah. So Armando, you've got the last story this week, and
that's right. I like to throw in a corporate story here and there. This one is actually from the National Business Aviation Association, or NBAA.org. They've actually reached out to U.S. and Irish ambassadors over a potential ban on general aviation, including business flights at Dublin Airport, due to its passenger volume potentially exceeding its 2024 cap, which is 32 million total passengers. The Dublin Airport's authorities' proposed ban aims to prevent surpassing this limit before plans to expand capacity to 40 million passengers per year are finalized, which takes an average of 2 years to get that kind of policy change pushed through. NBAA's Ed Boland warns that the ban could significantly impact Ireland's appeal for foreign investment and jeopardize jobs. While both NBAA and the Irish Business and General Aviation Association are hopeful that the passenger cap at Dublin will be raised to 40 millions, those groups have also suggested an alternative to allocate 20,000 of those passengers of the current 32 million passenger cap specifically to business aviation. According to Boland, he said that's a mere 0.0625% of the passenger limit. And he also noted that maintaining access to Ireland and the Dublin area for business aviation, which brings substantial economic and commercial benefits while still adhering to that 32 million passenger cap. This move by Ireland actually mirrors broader European trends. In May of 2023, the French government imposed a cap on aircraft flights between domestic destinations accessible within a 2.5-hour train ride, with specific focus, in their case, on business aviation. A similar effort to ban business jets at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport was suspended last year. Now, I threw the story in there because it's important to understand, as they are saying, the NBAA and the IGBAA, that this is the passengers that corporate travel only makes up less than 1% of total passengers going in and out. But I would guarantee that they have worked out the numbers of economic investment in the country, in Ireland, and maybe even specifically around the Dublin area, that is much more advantageous to the economy of those specific regions than having just passengers pass through the Dublin airport. So I think it's, again, kind of a self-marketing problem. I think business aviation has this air of luxury, which is true. However, the capital investments in these countries and regions where these people are traveling to far outweighs the possible I guess limitations imposed by policy and regulations like this. So I don't know, just kind of another open plug for corporate aviation continuing to have access while fighting off its own stigma, I suppose.
It's I guess it's a battle between the airport wanting its revenue and the country or the government as a whole's revenue. The Dublin are looking at how many Toblerones they're going to sell, getting people through, whereas actually, you might not sell as many Toblerones, but that private jet that had 4 business people on might do a deal worth billions, right?
Billions, yeah. And that's usually what it is. If you got a Gulfstream or a Global Express landing in Dublin to do business, it's probably worth millions and billions.
Yeah, you got to sell
1 billion
Toblerones.
Yeah. Anyways, so I think that wraps us up for commercial this week, doesn't it?
Yeah. How is life in the Hawker, as we're on the subject of the business flying?
Pretty slow, actually. Slow enough that I've started branching out a little bit, and our full-time job is now turned into just kind of 2 to 3 days a month. I think just the family and the company have slowed their travel a little bit. So we've started branching out as a team, myself and my co-captain, Tony, and we are marketing ourselves as a team here in the Charlotte area. There's plenty of hawkers. We've started just kind of picking up some, I guess, relieving some of the other crews that are pretty busy for some of the companies in the area. So it's pretty nice to fly different airplanes, fly to different destinations. I think last week I wasn't on the show because I was coming back from New Orleans. That was actually for a new Part 91 Hawker client that their crew was unavailable. So we took over that trip for them. It's pretty neat to fly to some new destinations.
Yeah, very nice. So before we go on to the military news, last week we opened up the book competition again, and we had a book to give away, which Nev has very kindly extended to next week. So you've got another week to enter the competition. The book we're giving away, I've actually got it here with me. For those of you who are in the world of YouTube, you'll see there. It's the private airplane passenger safety book. What you need to know. It's by Jake O'Graybill. And great little book, hardback book as well. And for those of you who do a lot of private flying, it's a good little read, this one. I don't know whether you've seen that one, Armando. It's quite interesting to read, this one. But the question we asked you, and you've still got another week to enter. Nev will be announcing the winner next week on the show. So the question we asked you was, we all know the Cessna 150 is one of the world's most popular training aircraft. But what year did the Cessna 150 first fly? So the Cessna 150, popular training aircraft, but what year did the Cessna 150 first take to the skies? I was quite surprised actually when I found the answer to this. I didn't realise at all. But get your answers in to podcast@planetalkinguk.com. Send your answers in to us, email us in. You can also or send us a message as well via our WhatsApp number. If you want to send us your answers via WhatsApp, you can do that as well. All the details will be at the end of the show to be in with a chance of winning that book. And as we said, the names will be pulled out of the hat next week by Nev. Hopefully he'll be back with us on the show next week. Do you know the answer, Armando?
Only because I looked it up after last week's show.
Okay. Were you surprised at the year?
No, I wasn't. I would talk about it, but it might give away too much. The Cessna 150 specifically was meant to be like the flying car, right? There's even a Cessna 150 commuter. That was the designation. It wasn't a Skyhawk or anything like that. And it was meant for people to travel during this age in aviation where it was first produced. It was meant for people to commute to work into the big city in their little Cessna 150 as a little two-car sports car. Well, it's not that sporty, but two-car car.
Are you a fan of the aircraft itself?
Cessna 150? Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a great... I would, no matter what I fly, I'm always comfortable to jump back into a Cessna 150 or 152 because it's just so simple. It's just so simple and probably more capable than most people think. There's an aerobatic version of a Cessna 150.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt? Are you well versed in the realms of the 150?
Yeah, I did all my initial training on a 152. Did my first solo in 152. So yeah, always enjoyed it. Yeah, even like Armando said, even things like it's got electric flaps on, which pretty unheard of, even for quite a while after the Cessna 150 came out. So yeah, it's good.
And a quick question before we move on to handing over the show to Armando: high wing or low wing?
Good question.
Preferred.
What am I doing?
What do you prefer, high wing or low wing? When you were flying, training or learning or general sort of family fun days out, high wing or low wing?
It depends, really. If you're doing sightseeing, high wing's much better. The view is much better from a high wing aircraft, and they're much more stable. When they stall much more predictably, things like that. I'd say for training, I found it very useful on a high wing. But then I'd say looks wise, I prefer the look of a low wing aircraft or a biplane. But like I say, it depends what I was doing with it. Certainly for sightseeing, the high wing's much better.
Armando?
What about you, Armando?
I prefer bi.
Oh, biplane.
The best of both worlds. Why not just throw two wings on the airplane?
Oh, excellent. Good choice there. And I take it everything's going well with the recent purchase, Armando.
I love it. It's such a cool airplane. I can't wait for every single one of you guys on the call right now and everybody in the chat room to come to Charlotte, and we'll take you for a ride because it's just such a cool feeling to jump into an open cockpit biplane.
There we go. See,
nice segue.
The offer's there to all you lovely listeners. Look, right, Armando, time to hand things over to you.
Yeah,
and I'll throw it
Nice segue onto a cool-looking aircraft.
Yeah, right. But first, Carlos, you got to hit the button.
What's up, Breeze 135, 50 Angel 16, heading 340. Okay. 108 boogie.
Actually, Carlos, I'm just going to sit here and gawk at my screen how beautiful this airplane is, and then I'm going to have you read the story while I continue to gawk and say how beautiful this airplane is.
It is so stunning, isn't it?
Yeah.
Honestly, when I saw this picture in the show notes, Stephen Ivey actually sent me this through as well this week, and But this story comes to us from the allthews.nasa.gov, and NASA and Lockheed Martin reveal the X-59 quiet supersonic aircraft. I have to say, it looks like one of those rendered pictures that you'd see, of something that's never been built and never will be built. NASA and Lockheed Martin have introduced the X-59 quiet supersonic aircraft designed to fly at speeds of 1.4 times the speed of sound, while minimising sonic booms, potentially influencing regulations that currently restrict supersonic flight over land. In its design, shaping and technologies will allow the aircraft to achieve these speeds while generating a quieter sonic thump. The X-59, central to NASA's Quest mission, will undergo a series of tests before making its inaugural flight later on in the year. Once NASA completes flight tests, the agency will fly the aircraft over several to-be-selected cities across the US. Hopefully one will be Charlotte for Armando. It will then be used to assess public perception of its acoustic impact in various US cities. The data gathered will inform both the FAA and international bodies, and the aircraft features a unique design with a long tapered nose, an engine on top, which along with other technological innovations contributes to its quieter sonic profile. The cockpit, notably positioned mid-length without a forward window, relies on external vision systems using high resolution cameras feeding a 4K monitor in the cockpit for visibility. The Quest team also designed the aircraft with its engine mounted on top and gave it a smooth underside to help shock waves from merging behind the aircraft and causing that all-important sonic boom. So, thoughts, Armando? Obviously you'd like to fly one, that's a given.
Yeah, well, first of all, shameless, not so shameless plug for the Airplane Geeks podcast. Go to airplanegeeks.com or look them up on your favorite podcatcher. Their episode 782 had 2 X-59 test pilots discussing this particular aircraft, the design, the technology, the role of the test pilots, and some of the challenges of flying supersonic aircraft. But for me, this might actually replace, in the question that we always ask of what aircraft would you fly if money was no object, and this is probably like the closest thing that we have to Dark Star in Top Gun. So I would love to fly this thing. Although, it's just got the television screens on the front. You can only see out the sides. But I guess when you're going, Mach 2, you can kind of just feel it, huh? Yeah. My hair on fire. Thanks, John.
Which is all right. Yeah. But what happens when those screens don't work?
See, again, take it back to the roots of aviation. When I land a biplane, I can't see out the front. I'm just kind of looking out the sides. So they're fine. If they're good pilots, they can fly it. No problem.
I think Matt is just wishing that they'll get a passenger variant of this.
It looks pretty cool, doesn't it? It does look pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing, like you say, they're not seeing very much. Is that a camera on the top? Are the screens showing a camera of the forward view? Yeah.
They are, yeah. We actually featured it on the show a couple months ago and had some pictures of the interior and their setup and their synthetic. It's all synthetic vision with overlays with infrared, I believe, and some other instrumentation and telemetry right on a television screen up front.
Nice. Yeah, it looks great, doesn't it? That nose is going to be pretty high off the ground in the flare, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 100. This aircraft is 100 feet long.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Sorry. We all got distracted. The next story, a little bit of Ukraine news. We haven't talked about Ukraine very much, but from the BBC.com as well as some other international media outlets out there, Ukraine's military says that it shot down a Russian military spy plane over the Sea of Azov in what analysts are saying could be a pretty significant blow to Moscow's air power. An Army Chief General Valery Zaluzny said that the Air Force had destroyed an A-50 long-range radar detection aircraft and an IL-22 control aircraft. The A-50 is kind of our version, or their version of our AWACS, that it detects air defenses, coordinates targets for Russian aircraft. Now, Ukraine recently has struggled to make any significant advances against the Russian forces, at least in the southeast of their country. But a briefing from the UK's Ministry of Defense said that Russia likely had about 6 operational A-50s. And of course, these aircraft are very, very expensive. Nobody's been able to verify this attack. It's all just on media. It was published on Telegram and some other things. But as you guys can imagine, if it was if it is true that they that they destroyed an A-50 and an IL-22, which, by the way, the Russians are saying it was hit by friendly fire. But these aircraft are what we call a low-density, high-demand aircraft, which means there's not that many of them, and everybody wants the products that they produce. So even the loss of one of these intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance aircraft would be a pretty significant hit to the Russian forces, as it would be to any forces, right? As you guys know, in the UK, this would be the equivalent of taking down one of an RC-135, or for us, an AWACS or a J-Stars or something like that, where these aircraft are very, very specialized in what they do, very good at what they do, but not having one available creates a pretty significant gap on the battlefield. So I guess we will see. Maybe we'll find out if these reports get verified or not, at least in public. But as you can imagine, the conflict still goes on in Ukraine.
I forgot what the IL-22 looked like, so I just had a little look. It's not a small aircraft, is it?
No, it's kind of if a Navy P-3 were to get stung by a bee, so it's kind of like a little bulbous P-3 4-engine turboprop. They've been around for a long time, quite a bit. I think since the 50s. I think 1947. I think the first flight was. So, and then the A-50 is it looks like a C-17 type aircraft. High mounted wings with 4 engines, T-tail, with a radar dome on top. So,
yeah, according to the amazing Wikipedia, Armando, the Illusion 22 first flew in 1947.
Yeah, but that seems a long way ago. But our B-52s were around since 1952. I think the C-130 has been around since the early 50s. The 707, right? All our 135s have been around since the early 50s. So not too far off of our own, at least in the U.S. reconnaissance aircraft ages.
Now, Matt, you've got the next one.
I certainly have. This one comes from Reuters.com, and it's French Mirage aircraft may reinforce Ukrainian Air Force, commander says. Ukraine will not be able to give up Soviet aircraft in favour of Western ones overnight, and the French military jets may coexist on Ukrainian airfields with American and Soviet ones, the head of the Ukrainian Air Force said on Sunday. Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began in February 2022, Kiev has pressed Western allies to supply increasingly sophisticated arms and ammunition, including armoured vehicles, tanks, long-range missiles, and US-made F-16 fighters. The first F-16 jets are expected to arrive in Ukraine later in 2024, although their impact on the war could be limited by the strength of Russia's air force. Ukraine's ground forces commander said on Friday that Kiev needed more military aircraft for its war efforts, such as the USA A-10 Thunderbolt II attack jets, to support infantry and planes that could fire long-range cruise missiles. The commander of the Ukrainian Air Force, Mykola Oleshchuk, says that not only American A-10s but also French Dassault Mirages may come into service in Ukraine. Oleshchuk was quoted on Telegram stating, along with F-16s, MiG-29s, they will also operate in the sky, and it's possible that the combat capabilities of the Su-24M bombers will be enhanced by the Mirage 2000D and the Su-25 attack aircraft, will be strengthened by A-10 Thunderbolt IIs. Mirage 2000 is a French multi-role single-engine fourth-generation fighter jet. The priority today, of course, is the F-16, for which Ukrainian pilots are already being retrained. However, our experts are also studying other opportunities to increase the combat potential of aviation in general, Oleshchuk said. So, Armando, with your background and knowledge, what are your thoughts on this one? What's it like for them as a military, having so many and so many different, very different concept types of fighter aircraft?
Under normal circumstances, I would say that it would be very challenging, but given the situation, given the resolve of the country and its armed forces. I think, as we've seen in almost every conflict, war leads to innovation and it leads to improvisation. And I think that the Ukrainians would probably be able to fly these aircraft and fly them well. Even World War II, there were so many examples of low time pilots jumping into aircraft they had very little experience on and being incredibly successful. So I think just having the capabilities, as long, kind of what you're saying, Matt, as long as it's backed up by a logistical chain, right? Where now you need not just pilots.
That's more what I meant, sorry, from like not the pilot's perspective, but from an entire military logistics point of view, operating multiple different types. Do you think that would be difficult, or is it?
Yeah, it does get very challenging because you have to train your engineers and your mechanics. You need to have a parts supply. Running them isn't cheap by any means. It is probably more beneficial for them to run F-16s and Mirages for parts availability than say an Su-25, right? Where, well, obviously the Russians they're not going to give them new parts for that aircraft. So I think transitioning to these kinds of aircraft that are almost their Western twin, right? So the A-10 and the Su-25 have almost identical capabilities and identical roles, but switching to something that does at least have some kind of logistical back chain would be advantageous to them.
Yeah, Mirage 2000 first introduced into service back in the late 70s, 78. 1978, yeah. But yeah, as attrition happens, also any backfilling of these capabilities is important for them to continue on. Mind you, the F-16 has been going since 1974, so.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the theme in military is there's a lot of platforms. The F-15, they say, is going to continue on for another probably 25, 30 years.
Wow.
There's new ones being produced off the line right now, and it's, right around the same time frame or mid-70s. So kind of speaking of fighter jets, and the last story that we have for the military is from time.com. Kind of an evolving situation out there in Yemen. But the Houthi rebels fired an anti-ship cruise missile towards an American destroyer in the Red Sea last week, but a U.S. fighter jet actually shot down the missile in this sort of latest attack and latest escalation of this conflict going on in these global shipping lanes in parallel with the Israel-Hamas war that's going on in the Gaza Strip. This particular attack marks the first time that the U.S. acknowledged fire by the Houthis since the U.S. and its allied nations began some strikes last weekend on these rebel compounds following some weeks of assaults on ships and shipping in the Red Sea. The Houthis have targeted this crucial corridor that links Asian and Mideast energy and cargo shipments to the Suez Canal. I think I read somewhere that it's some 15%, or actually it was Anthony Blinken that said some 15% of the world's trade goes through this region. Therefore, it is very important that the shipping lanes are secured. And I don't have a story on it, but just a couple days ago, there were 2 U.S. Navy SEALs that are still missing. They intercepted a ship that had Iranian-produced missile parts that were going to the Houthis. So for me, I think this is just a continued escalation of a yet another conflict that's kind of associated. But this is really important for to secure global commerce in that particular area, and I don't see it getting any better in the next year or so. So I have a feeling that we're going to start seeing some more stories come out of Yemen and Somalia and that whole region.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that an aircraft, I don't know which aircraft it was, but a U.S. aircraft shot down a cruise missile. It's kind of a unique air-to-air kill.
I think stories like this show that actually it sort of backs up the need that we do need these air forces and military. It's not just for if we are in a war or if we are attacked. It's actually for things like protecting. I mean, it doesn't have to be a military destroyer that's attacked. You know, there's been attacks on, as you say, on cargo and things like that. So protection comes in all sorts of forms that's required.
Yeah, and it's the reason the Navy still exists, to be honest. I mean, they have a pretty limited ship-to-shore capability compared to all the other services, but I don't think most people realize how important shipping lanes are to global commerce.
But everything.
Yeah, I mean, think about when that.
Anyway.
I was going to say, think about when that ship or container got stuck in the Suez Canal. It caused supply chain problems for months globally, didn't it? Just from the blockage.
Yeah, and if companies have to start going around the entire region, then that costs more logistically, which means the price of goods will continue to go up. Yeah, not to mention it empowers these terrorist organizations. So, sorry, you said something, Carlos.
No, I was just saying a lot of, you know, you see a lot of things on the news and stuff now, and even, you know, we've got a new drama series that's being shown on TV at the minute, obviously fictional, but it's based around the use of UAVs, you know, fully armed UAVs being used in combat.
Yeah, that always makes me giggle because every time they say it's a drone attack, there's usually a manned aircraft somewhere nearby.
Yeah, yeah. And on the subject of drones, don't forget me and Nev and Matt as well, haven't we? Our guest tonight, Matt. We're off to Dublin, aren't we, in March for the drone summit at the RDS Arena in Dublin. So if any of our listeners are in and around the Dublin area in March, beginning of March, 1st and 2nd of March, let us know. We'd like to have a meet. We're going to have a little get-together in Dublin while we're there. We're there for 2 days, aren't we, Matt, covering the drone summit there.
Yeah.
And we're going to be taking a look at some rather interesting tech, I reckon, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. And if any of your listeners are on Armando's side of the pond, I'm going to be in Vegas towards the end of this month, so 31st till the of Jan till the 6th of Feb. So if any of the listeners are in that area and fancy catching up, get in contact either through my podcast and that or through PT UK. It'd be great to see some people over there as well.
Is that work or pleasure, Matt?
Pleasure this time. Yeah.
And who's the chosen carrier of choice for?
It's the Nev. The Nevs. Yeah.
Oh, you'll be out. Oh, Nev will be impressed.
We are, yeah.
I'm guessing you'll be in obviously business class.
Unfortunately, not. No.
Oh no.
I don't quite have the status of Nev, so I'll be. I'm in whatever BA called premium.
Oh,
that is.
the yes.
World Traveller Plus or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was an extra. I don't know. One way, I think it's extra $5,000 or something to go business, and I was like, nah, it's okay. Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. So slumming it in the middle, not down the back, but yeah.
Well, you never know. Armando might be able to fly in and see you while you're there. You know.
Yeah. I think we've checked, Armando. You're not in Vegas at the end of the month, are you? I think you should suggest to the owners that it's really good to go to Vegas this time of year.
We actually do go to Vegas once or twice a year. It just doesn't happen to be. And funny about this, because as Matt is coming to the U.S. and going to Vegas, I'm in the middle of planning our UK trip, which involves my family going over to Casa Clutterbuck. So we'll be in Cambridge for a couple of days and hanging out with them. His girls and Maddie are friends, and plus we've got more friends that will probably come out. So
it's funny actually, because when we was at yours a couple of years ago, Maddie left her water bottle in our car, And they've kept it all this time. And when I said you guys are coming over to stay, the first thing they said was like, "We can give Maddie her water bottle."
Well, all right. You know, it's funny how kids do that, right? They, as long as they get a purpose, that they're going to
Yeah.
remember it forever.
I'd forgotten all about it, but they ran and got it out of the back of the cupboard in the kitchen where they've been keeping this Maddie's water bottle.
You should send me a picture of which one it is, because I know all her stuff.
It's an Under Armour one, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what the Carlos, I know you're going to ask, but that's what we're doing, is just kind of planning our UK trip. I think we'll be in Cambridge those couple of days. I want to show the girls Bury St Edmunds, where I lived, and sort of East Anglia, which I, despite whatever you guys say, I think is beautiful. Yeah. And I think we're going to be in the Cotswolds for a few days before Cambridge, just to do some outdoorsy type stuff. And us Americans are completely infatuated with Great British Baking Show, or Bake Off. So we're going to do a baking adventure experience, not adventure, I guess, but a baking experience in the Cotswolds. So the whole family, we're going to go bake some breads and make some macarons and go some hikes, go down to Oxford. We'll probably meet up with Nev in Oxford. Yeah, it'll be nice. Sort of 9 days in the UK that we're looking forward to.
Excellent. Excellent. It'll be good to see you as well, Armando. Looking forward to that very much indeed. But Matt, what's going on in the world of you? What you got planned for the next week? Anything exciting?
Well, I've been teaching the last couple of weeks. In the winter, I'm part-time, so I've spent the last couple of weeks teaching, doing some training on the Airbus. And then,
is that in a sim, or is that fixed base, or
bit of both? Yeah. Bit of both. I do the ground school as well, so I've been doing some type rating ground school, the technical stuff for the A320, practicing procedures in the procedure training, and some sim stuff. I've got a command preparation course that I'm doing next week, so I do a lot of command preparation for people that are going from their commands, any airline, but A320 based. So I've got that coming up, which I always enjoy. It's always a good day, all done on Zoom. Last one I did at the beginning of this month, I think we had people from Hong Kong, Australia, UK, all over Europe and stuff. So it's really good. You get a nice mix of experience, and I really like that because, as I'm sure Armando will tell you, even when you're training, you learn a lot. Hearing how the culture is out in the Middle and Far East and Australasia, and everyone has different experiences. So it's always really good. So I always really enjoy those, preparing people for their commands to become a captain. Yeah.
Excellent. So you're not off to any hot destinations then with the airline that you fly for?
I've got some Egyptian stuff coming up.
Oh, good.
So yeah, bit of Egyptian. No, nothing too cold. I think I'm generally going south. I used to do a lot of Keflaviks that we talked about earlier. That seemed to be my route. I was put on them. I did 3 in a week once, 3 in 3 days. But this winter, not so much. I'm not doing the Kef so much this year. I seem to be doing what Armando would call the snowbird routes. So, yeah.
Excellent. And passenger number wise, before we wrap up the show, Matt, would you say things are starting to get busier now, or have they been busy for a long while?
What, since COVID?
Numbers? Yeah.
Yeah, they recovered a long time ago. Yeah, I think. Yeah,
you're seeing full flight. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a very nice conversation this afternoon with Paul Papadimitriou from the Layovers podcast. Obviously, some of you listeners know that we're off to Geneva at the beginning of next month in February with the BA boys, as Ned will be pleased to hear. But had a good chat with Paul this afternoon, and honestly, that guy he's like a walking, talking encyclopedia of Geneva. He knows everything there is to know about there, and he also said it's quite a nice airport there as well, so I'm looking forward to that. And also, obviously, flying on the 321 NEO as well, which is what hopefully it says on the booking thing, that it's going to be a 321 NEO. So fingers crossed that'll stay the same. Because I've yet to sample the 321 NEO, Matt.
Have you been on a 320 NEO?
Yes.
Okay. Same but longer.
Same but longer, yeah.
Yeah. Unless you're sitting at the back, it'll look the same.
Look the same, exactly. So that is it. We're going to wrap up the show then. So social media links, in case you didn't already know where we were. Don't forget to give us a look on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter as well. Search for Plain Talking UK on there as well. Also, don't forget to give us an email if you want to send us some feedback. We'd love to hear from you. So you can send that into our email address, podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. Also, the answers for the competition to win this book, you can send those into the email as well. I shall pop this on our socials as well with the question for those of you who might have missed the question, so you can enter that draw to win that book next week. We're on YouTube as well, don't forget. Just look for us, Plain Talking UK, and also our website, allthews.plaintalkinguk.com is where you can find out more about us, what we are, who we are, what we look like, although John's picture is rather interesting. If you've not seen the website, check out John's picture. He looks stunning. You can find out more about Patreon if you want to become a patron of the show, and also the links to donate to the show as well, because it all helps to push the content each week that we do on the show. If you want to send us a picture in to go on the green screen behind here, this is I'm in the Master Suite studio this week, in the PTK Master Suite studio. You can send us a picture in to +44 757 224966 is that WhatsApp number, and you can pop a picture on there, and we can have that on the green screens behind me when I'm back at home in my studio as well. Plus, you can send your feedback in there as well. We'd love to hear from you. If there's something you'd like us to talk about on the show or look into in the world of aviation, let us know. Perhaps there's something that you think that Armando would be a legend at answering, which we all know that he would answer any questions about anything. And that is about it for the episode this week, 486. Big thanks to everyone who joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening, for all the family members in there for tuning in tonight on our new day, which is obviously Wednesdays now. We are live Wednesday nights, 7 o'clock here on YouTube. Going to say thanks to Matt for joining us tonight. Big thanks to you, Matt. Really appreciate you coming on tonight and taking time out of your Wednesday evening to join us.
No worries, you're always welcome. And I had a great time being on, as always, so thanks for inviting me.
Excellent. And Armando, thanks for joining us as well from across the pond. Always good to have you on board. Are you with us next Wednesday, Armando?
Oh, putting me on the spot. I can't remember. No, I'll be flying. I'll be in Rochester, Minnesota next Wednesday.
Oh, no.
But also, just for Lee in the chat room, I actually love the North. When I lived in the UK and I had family visit, I would always tell them, we're going to do one day in London and the South. And then the rest of the time, I would start in York, because I love York. I think York is beautiful, right? And then we would go north from there. So I actually am partial to, especially when people are visiting, to take them to the north of England. But it's just inconvenient when you only have 9 days. You really need like a whole month to visit the UK.
And you're always welcome over here, Armando. As you
one day when I retire, like actually retire, I think I probably will come over there for a couple of months, as long as the border police will let me stay over there.
So that's it for the show this week. Armando, I'm going to leave you to say goodbye to everyone on the live show this week.
It's always a pleasure to have Matt on, and we can nerd out over the technical aspects of airplanes. Big chat room today. Loved everybody in the chat room. And thanks, Carlos. Thanks, John. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Nev. And, of course, Matt, for putting the show together every week. Everybody have a great rest of the week.
Bye.